like to welcome you to our Stevens Plantation Improvement Project this Thursday, October the 7th. And with that, I will please ask our clerk to please call the roll.
Chairman Blackwell?
Here.
Vice Chairman Trace?
Here.
Member Matheny?
Here.
Member Askew?
Here. The first item on the agenda, Madam Clerk, would you mind reading that into the minutes?
Resolution number 2021-11R, a resolution of the Board of the Stevens Plantation Improvement Project Dependent Special District approving and accepting an agreement to sell lots 1, 2, and 4 of the Nolte Road Commercial Park of Stevens Plantation, approximately 4.7 acres of the real property to EMF of Winter Park, Inc., for $1,050,000, and authorizing the chairman or in his absence, the vice chairman to execute the agreement and all other documents necessary to complete the sale.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I'll start out on this. And first of all, I'll tell you, we will apologize. When we put the agenda together, we were this deal was moving for these properties was moving, and there were some moving parts on it. So, actually, the proposal before you is to sell, as read in by the clerk, but it is to sell lots 1, 2, 4, and 5 at the Stevens Plantation Retail Center or the Nolte Commercial Park. And so the presentation we're gonna provide to you is dealing with 1, 2, 4, and 5. The buyer is the same, but we want to make sure we're talking about it. So we can run through it if we want. So I'll just talk to you real quick about it. Then this is the slide shows you the terms of the contract. These 4 lots combined equal 6.08 acres. The purchase price that has been offered by the buyer is $1,320,000. The inspection period that they're asking for is a 60-day inspection period, and the buyer would absorb the CDDA bonds, and a closing would be 30 days after expiration of the inspection period. And they're looking at a $100,000 earnest money deposit that would not be refundable after the inspection period. There is, and it's not on this slide, but they are also asking for a government approval, a permitting period, which was another 60 days over there. I'm sorry? Oh, they did remove it. Okay, I'm sorry. Again, I apologize for that. These things have been moving pretty quickly. So, awesome. We're looking at a 60-day inspection period and the closing 30 days afterwards, and the purchase price of $1,320,000. I think that's the only slide we have on there, right? You have a picture? Okay. And I'll let, if Veronica, do you want to talk about the elevations and stuff?
Veronica Malalas from Capital Stack Real Estate Group, listing broker for the DSD. This is a preliminary rendering of just, it's very, very rough. Of course, this morning we actually had a pre-app meeting with the Bismail and his team, just to kind of talk about some of the plans that the buyer, and by the way, the buyer is represented here today. If you have any questions for him, he is here today. So the building is going to be set up close to the road, just like what the city would like to see, and so that got quite a bit of blessing from planning and zoning, and of course the Bismail's team. And if you could go to the next slide. So this is very rough, and forgive us. I think the original conceptual site plan was quickly put together by Bowman Consulting, who, by the way, also did engineering for all of the planning for the utilities, and of course for Joyce Development Group and for Walmart Neighborhood Market Store. So they're very familiar with the site, and so as you can see here, there would be some. Let me see. That's I think 20,000 or so. I can't see the end cap, but I know that those bays are 4,000 each. Up in the front, retail and medical office or office, professional office. I believe maybe they could, or if they're able to do a drive-through. And from my understanding, that there is a process that's already underway for the abandonment of the utility easement on the north of that property. And that there's also some plans to put the retail park sign on the northeast corner of that, if I'm understanding correctly. But please don't look at the way that the parking is laid out, because pretty much it's just kind of like an idea of what the buyer was thinking that they'd like to do. More retail and office on the L-shaped on the west side of the property, there, southwest of the property. And of course, there was an original plan for some kind of daycare on that lot 5. So that could be a possibility as well. So, and you have the access road right there in the middle going in. We got a lot of comments for the buyer, and certainly would need a lot more engineering to be done for the concept. But pretty much, this is an idea that the buyer has. And again, the buyer is here, and if you have any questions for him.
Would the buyer like to speak?
Thank you. So the concept is, as Veronica said, is very roughly drawn, is essentially done in Canva. It's not like a final plan, but we will work with the city and create beautiful facades facing the Nolte Road, and we would have some retail. We also have our own med spa business, so that would bring a lot of jobs. We have 5 locations in Orlando, Seminole County, and Orange County, and Lake County. So we'll bring similar business here, and then rent out the remaining units to high upscale businesses and medical users as well. We are in a preliminary discussion for a very nice daycare center that is ready to do a build to suit. So that's also we have good progress on that. That would most likely happen. And then as far as all the parking and everything, it does look very roughly drawn, as you can already see. It's just done in Canva very quickly, thanks to Veronica. But we would, of course, engineering all that so that all the for the fire trucks to go in and out. We had a pre-app meeting in the morning, so we discussed some of those. Feedback has already been given by the city, the people in the city planning and zoning and other divisions to us, and we'll work with that so that all of those are well taken care of. Any questions?
Hang on, okay? Mr. Manzares.
And I just want to, as follows for further discussion tonight, you did receive, and it's in front of you, we did receive another letter of intent with regard to this property, and that prospective buyer is here present too. So when you're ready, I think we'd ask you to just take a look at that and decide how you want to address that. It's pretty much very similar to what we have here. It does have a purchase price in the letter of intent of $1,305,000 and a similar earnest money deposit as we've been talking about, with a closing to occur with a 30-day inspection period and then another 60 days after that for closing. So that's what's in the LOI, and the prospective buyer and his attorney are present if you
Okay.
wish to hear from them.
Ms. Matheny.
Thank you. So, Dan, what you just said between these two offers, this one was 60 days, and is that the only differential, really? It's $5,000 difference in price, but
Well, actually, it's 15,000.
15,000.
15. The first offer was 1,320,000, and the LOIs 1,305,000.
sorry, I just wrote 1.3 when you were talking.
That's all right.
So I do have a couple questions. So in this offer, it says that the A bonds are absorbed
By the buyer.
by the buyer, and so what happens to the B bonds?
B bonds are paid at closing.
They're paid, so we'll be out of that. And then what about taxes?
All the taxes would all be paid at closing, assuming the property closes before about March 15th.
So we won't have any more
Well, the
city.
city
payment.
would not have to write any more taxes. Now,
Okay.
however, like we talked about the last time, that deadline of March is pending. So we've told all the buyers with regard to this property, as well as the one you're going to talk about in a second, that time is of the essence when it comes to closing.
Well, and I think what we did with the other property, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought what we did was we obligated them to pay the taxes whether they closed.
Well, we
In
offered
time or
that
not.
to them, and we're going to talk about that at the next meeting because the next item.
I've seen a message about that, but, so, I mean, that is something we could talk about here too. And then, Ms. Malalos pulled up a rendering of the building, and I thought she said that it was pushed right against the right-of-way. But then that graphic there with the site plan shows that there's a road of some sort between, Nolte and the building. Right, so is that, because the rendering doesn't look like it's got a drive-through lane.
So it's a very, very rough, sort of very quick rendering that was put together for the presentation. And obviously, if the front of the building requires a smaller walkway, then that's what it would be.
That's a walkway?
Yes.
Oh, it looks like a drive aisle. That's what's on this plan right there?
There's no intent for any car, because there's no way to put a car.
Okay, I just wanted to make
no.
sure that the buildings were actually up against the right of way and we weren't putting another loop road or back up.
Yeah, so the intent is, from my understanding, the intent of Bowman is to put, and the buyer is to put like a drive-through. So maybe I am incorrect. Maybe that's the intent. I'm not really sure because that's something that maybe you would like to address.
So it would be, we are open to both of those kind of renderings. So even if we do it like a drive-through like that, there would still be facades and canopies facing the Nolte Road. Once we start pre-leasing, we'll see what kind of interest we get in any drive-through, quick QSR kind of tenants. And if we find such interest, then we'll work with our architects and the civil engineers to design it with the drive-through. But obviously, if city is opposed to having such drive-through QSR for whatever reasons, but because at least from the PUD it didn't look like that this kind of drive-through concept is not so welcome. So we had instructed basically Bowman to see if a drive-through can be put, and he did put a drive-through there. So that's what is there. But we are open to both kind of concepts. We are not bent and decided onto one or the other. We are also looking at possibility of a food hall in the left side on the so a food hall where you would have something like Boxy Park, but indoors, where you can have people can just, small restaurant spaces. They collect their food and there would be sitting areas. So we are open to that kind of concept as well. But none of those are like, we are at not that stage yet to spend all that money on architectures and civil engineers.
What's QSR? I don't know what that is.
Quick service restaurant,
Oh,
like drive-through.
like a fast food.
Yeah, drive-through. Yeah, whichever drive-through window basically. So we will if we get such tenants interested, then we will go with a drive-through. Otherwise, we'll just push it further to the road. But again, if for any reason if the drive-through is not welcome, I think it will look good. It would look really good. Drive-through with canopies and the doors. There has to be exit doors in the back. There is a fire code requirement as well. So we'll have doors like if you go back to the rendering, it would look like this because even with the drive-through. But those would be just like emergency exit doors. If you have looked at the what's the one, the dental care center, they have an entrance facing Nolte Road like this, like a door entrance. But then their parking and everything. I'm talking about Lot 3, which is already developed. Stevens Crossing Dental. So it will be like that. So these doors are just for emergency, and you can have the drive-through lanes going around. That's a possibility.
And I know this is preliminary, but is the intent to put windows here, or you would just have fake awnings over brick?
No, those doors they have to be real doors. Each of the units, they need to have a doors facing exit door for emergency exit, facing Nolte Road. But the main entrance, as you see, the parking is from the inside of the development. So actual entrances of those
Right.
units would be
I'm
from
talking
there.
windows though, like between the
Oh, the
word
windows.
cafe and nail spa, there's like awnings and lights, but there's no windows.
Okay, so again, this was just done quickly in Canva and MS Paint, but we would put 25% windows. We looked at that today morning and when we had the pre-app meeting, so there would be some windows, I think.
Okay.
We just removed it unnecessarily.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Councilmember Trace?
So what was the intended use of the other LOI? I was marking this up as you were talking, but I guess there's two.
Well,
now.
I mean, I think it would be an appropriate question to ask the prospective buyers, because I don't think we have.
Yes, at this point, we'll hear from the other buyer and your offer.
I'm Haynes Brents, the attorney for Boker Radulovic, who's representing the developer. He's the developer. The question you asked are more of his bailiwick than mine, so I'll let him speak right now.
Good evening. Yeah, I sort of came.
What is your name, sir? Could you state your name?
Boki Radulovic. I'm here quite quickly. I just heard about this global offer this afternoon and came right down. Although this offer came in at the last minute, I've been negotiating this property for the daycare for months now, for 6-7 months or more. I've also been involved in the catty corner property across the street. We were going to put a 7-Eleven there. The same person that bought me the daycare. I believe he's involved, Veronica. So the daycare, we're actually waiting for approval next week on the funding. And I'm the one that's going to be developing with the GC and buying that property. I understand it was a contract, and I didn't know that, that this is now going from 1 property to 4. On the front parcel, there is a plan for 10,000 square feet strip center, mom and pop strip center. There's already an LOI, I believe, on a restaurant, some ice cream, and some other components that my GC, Barry Compton, was not here, would give you more details on. But I'm fully prepared to buy all 4 parcels if necessary. So although this offer came in at the last moment, I'm over here waiting for our funding approval to go vertical on the daycare and begin design on the 10,000 square feet in the front, and we can quickly do highest and best use on the other 2 parcels. We're fully capable of closing. My attorney is here, and he can answer those questions on how and when. I don't need that much due diligence. I know everything about the area. I've been here in Florida for about 26 years. I was involved in the Loop with Cornerstone Thacker. I own 40 acres on Yates and 192, so I'm not scared of the property, and I work quickly. Haynes, you want to give him some background on the closing?
So, again, right now, the LOI, I think, called for 30-day due diligence. We will just like to have one last look, but as far as closing, we could probably close within 15 days after that, because we've got several properties, a couple other properties he's selling that will have the liquidity to close very quickly after the due diligence, within 15 to 30 days of the max.
Do we have any questions?
I do.
Ms. Matheny?
Dan, just to clarify for me, the other offer is saying 60 days plus another 60 days to get
30.
through permitting?
No, the original office contained that, but they've withdrawn the additional 60-day permitting
Okay,
period.
so it's 60?
60 plus 30 days to close after the inspection. So there's, from an outside comparable, one has you from effective date to closing in about 90 days, from what Mr. Brinson just said. The other one has it from effective date to 45 to 60 days.
You have any other questions? Well, I'm kind of in a quandary where to go from this point. Can you?
Well, as we've told you before, if I could, the key issue for the district, obviously, is the closing as quick as possible, and to avoid having the city to have to front additional taxes. The other piece that you always have to maintain is you do owe an obligation to the bondholders to sell the property for the highest value you can get, so within reason. So basically meshing those 2 points together with a 90-day close period on the higher offer before you, it should basically meet both of those both of those considerations.
Any other discussion, questions?
I got a question.
Councilman Trace?
So we were kind of going down the rabbit hole of the drive-through lane in front of the building. Kind of what was everyone's thought on that? Because that's the kind of the collateral damage of pulling all the buildings forward is that, drive-throughs just don't work because you don't have the parking in front of it, or there's no point if the building has a 20 or 20-foot wide 20 or 24-foot wide drive aisle in front of it, then you might as well just have parking in front of it as well.
I agree with you. That's why I was saying, I thought you said the building was being pushed up to the front. So the dentist office is not pushed up to,
It is, and the parking lot's next to it.
okay.
Yes, beside it, behind it.
Yeah, which almost doesn't meet the purpose either because you still have a parking lot up against the road, so I don't know what
It's supposed to be for walkability,
Yeah.
so instead of building a Walmart and shoving it all the way in the southwest corner of the lot and then the, sidewalks up here and the poor person walking has to walk through a sea of,
Yeah.
it's for walkability.
Can I answer that?
Yes, you may come. Just state your name again.
Max Tucker for EMF of Winter Park. So that we are not really so keen on having a drive-through. If you look at that drawing, because we asked the Bowman engineers to put it together, give us an option, so they did it that way. But in realistically, this does not even look so good to me, because if you look at the loop around the whole building, drive-throughs typically they're going around 1 or 2 units. If somebody has to do drive-through all around, I don't like this. Honestly, this is just one of the ideas. So if city wants us to say, if you, the contract has already been drafted by city attorney and given to us, and we are okay with that, with the new price. And if you want to put it in there that we will not put drive-through and push the building all the way there, we are okay with that. We don't have to do drive-through.
And then both proposals, the other group said that daycare center, you guys are proposing a daycare facility as well?
Yes, we are proposing a daycare center, and we are further along in our discussions with the city in how it all will be laid out. We have not wasted city's time in the past. We are going to move forward with this. We have other businesses in the Orlando area, and we'll put our own business in this as well.
Okay. And then question for Dan. Did this go in front of the bondholders, and we usually get their blessing before?
Well, the only time we were obligated to get their blessing was if there was going to be something to address the A bonds. So we haven't asked them for anything, any sort of concession on that, because both of these offers and the other offer tonight all contemplate the buyer absorbing the A bonds on the property.
Gotcha. Okay.
Member Matheny?
Thank you. The second offer mentioned Compton Builders in Barry Compton. So, that made me kind of think gosh, we got kind of strung out for a while with Compton Builders. I don't remember how long that was. Ms. Malalos, do you recall? It was a long time for these same parcels.
So he had a contract for lot 2. And he did not close, and I believe the earnest deposit was kept by
Yeah, he forfeited
city.
Compton Builders forfeited that deposit.
But it seems like we had an offer and then we extended it. And
Well,
and how long did that go on? Where that property was tied up?
Since COVID last year, so
Yeah.
it's probably at least 12 months. And then for lot 5, where the daycare is, he had put in an offer, was approved by the DSD, and he did not sign the contract the first time, and then he came back, and then it was approved again, did not sign the contract. And the last communication I had from an email from him was that they're still working on their financing, so that's why he has not signed the contract for lot 5.
And that's who this Intervest is Compton Builders? Or
If you want to.
Sure. Barry Compton is a GC. I'm a developer. I'm the investor. First of all, this daycare, I've met, I don't know if he has the same daycare or we're talking about a different one because it's the same broker. But I met with the daycare with Wanda. We did a partnership deal and she's waiting for approval next week for her SBA loan. Barry Compton would be the GC, but he's not the investor developer. That would be me. I definitely have the money, but I'm not aware of all this back and forth that's been going on with Barry and himself on it. But I close deals, and I'm not here to make a bidding war or argue. I like to buy property, build on it, honor my word to Wanda. Is that the same daycare? I never met this gentleman, but I'm sure he's capable also of closing. I've been in the area around. I know the Stephen Plantations. I know the bigger deal he did down the block. I had 2 or 3 people that was involved in making those offers. So just to answer your question directly, Barry's basically the GC. And he's a good GC.
Right.
He's a
I
bad
mean,
businessman.
I don't have anything against him, and he comes and he has like good product and all that stuff. It's just that we got kind of drug along for quite some time. So when I heard Compton, I was like, uh-oh.
Any other discussion? Anything else?
Okay, so to summarize, the Intervest offer is 1.305 million, 30-day IP, 15 or 30-day close. IRS Associate Partners is 1.32 million, 60-day IP, 30-day close.
EMF.
EMF.
EMF from Winter Park.
Sorry.
That's the next item you're looking at.
Okay, EMF. Too many letters.
And both absorb the A bonds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And on the, if I could, for the EMF side, so the 100,000, would that be a 25,000 initial and a 75,000 after the inspection period?
No, it's a straight one.
A straight 100,000? Okay.
And what is it on the other one?
What I just said was 25,000 and then 75,000 after the inspection period.
Okay.
So this one is the initial deposit of 100,000, which would become non-refundable after the inspection period.
Could I entertain a motion?
All right, I'll make a motion based on our fiduciary responsibility to bring as much money in for the bondholders and for the city, the higher offer from EMF of $1.32 million with a 60-day IP, a 30-day closing, and a total of $100,000 deposit. I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Let me get clarification. You're talking about
The one that was in
EM.
the packet, but it's more money, or they changed some of the terms.
You have the EMF that's on the resolution there.
Okay, I'll second.
We have a motion from Member Trace, a second from Member Askew. Is anyone in the audience want to speak to this item? If not, do we have any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
You want
You can do a roll call on it. I mean, a voice vote. And all in favor?
Can I just do an all in favor then? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? And it carries unanimously. Madam Clerk, will you please read item number 3?
Resolution number 2021-12R, a resolution of the Board of the Stevens Plantation Improvement Project Dependent Special District approving and accepting an agreement to sell Tract 6 and 8A Stevens Plantation Corporate Campus, approximately 5.5 acres of real property to IRS Associates Partners LLC for $825,000 and authorizing the chairman or in his absence the vice chairman to execute the agreement and all documents necessary to complete the sale.
And just for clarification, that's a typo. It's LRS.
Okay.
I think the IRS would be upset with them if they use that.
LRS. You have anything else for us, Mr. Manzares?
Yes, and I'll just go quickly through this. So as you recall, these parcels, Tract 6 and 8A on the corporate campus, these parcels we were back in front of you at your last meeting. At that time, there were two competing officers for the property, and at that time, the board directed that staff accept the offer from LRS Associate Partners for $825,000 for the 5.5 acres. The offer was, again, with the buyer absorbing the CDDA bonds, an initial deposit of $25,000, an inspection period of 60 days, an additional deposit after the inspection period of $25,000, and then a government approval period of 90 days. And the original offer had three actual 30-day extensions with a $5,000 additional deposit for extensions on the government approval period, and then a closing 30 days after the issuance of the site development plan or building permit or expiration of the permitting period. We, as you also recall at the August meeting, there were two other issues. One that Ms. Matheny mentioned earlier, the issue with regard to the outstanding tax certificates for the 2019 tax and assessments that are on this property that would come due in March, and if the property hadn't closed, then the city would have to fund those amounts. So in the offer that we presented to the buyer and the buyer's attorney, we had a provision that was called the tax certificate redemption payment amount, which essentially provided that if the property didn't close by March 15th of 2022, that the buyer would pay the taxes to the district for the district to pay to the tax collector, and that amount would not be a credit towards the purchase price at closing. That was put in the offer. The second provision, as you recall during the discussion that night, was with regard to the development, and at that time the board approved acceptance of the offer with a condition in the contract that the buyer would build a minimum of 24,000 square feet of Class A or comparable office space. Those were two items that were specifically part of the board's approval. When we put the contract together, including these two provisions, the prospective buyer came back and said that they were not in favor, did not want to agree to these two terms. So we've brought it back before you to get it finally clarified and address it, so that we can get a final decision about how the board wants to proceed on that. Representative of the buyer is here. They're happy to explain to you their position on it, which we clearly understand. So I think it's just up for the board to hear them out and decide how they want to proceed.
Okay. Would the buyer like to speak?
Thanks for having me. Greg Cross with 37 Capital Partners. Appreciate your time. So I think we're close on the contract. I think that what you guys proposed was, not out of the realm of reality. I think that our pushback are on those two exact things, one being the $45,000 in real estate taxes for 2019. I guess on our side of the table is that we felt like we put a fair market value offer in front of you guys for the 825 plus the A bonds, which puts us in over $200,000 an acre for the site. We think that's at market. The $45,000 that we're talking about here represents about a 5% increase over that offer. So with respect, we'd like to try to hold at the original offer with that. The other issue with the $45,000 that comes in is, we went back and looked at the numbers. Prior to closing this deal, we're going to have about $60,000 worth of cash equity in the deal prior to closing already with soft cost and architectural engineering. To tack another $45,000 on top of that seems like a little more risk than we're willing to absorb. So with respect, we'd like to try to hold on the original offer at 825 plus the A bonds. The other issue is the $25,000 minimum square footage contingency that's in the contract. I want to let you guys know, just rest assured that we all have the same vision. We put a site plan, we put a rendering in front of you guys. We still hold that vision, but from our side of the table, with respect, we want to make sure that we've got the ability to move with the market. And considering that there is an easement that bifurcates this property, we're going to push as much square footage to the front of this site as we can. It's going to be in line with the renderings that we put, so we all want something pretty up there. But we don't want to be boxed in from a purchase and sale agreement perspective to something that's very specific like that. We want to have the ability to run our route, run our program on it, put together the best site plan that's most feasible for the site, that maximizes utility both from a tax base for the city and a return to the investor. So once we do that, I know we have to come back for approval over that site plan and the renderings then, and we'd like to address it at that point rather than in the purchase and sale. I think that, at the end of the day, the newest site plan that we have is pushing a lot of retail, Class A office retail to the front. I don't want to stick to a number, but I think at the end of the day, we're all going to be very happy with both that square footage and the appeal and the facade. So with that, I'll answer any questions to you. I think just in summary, we'd like to try to hold to the purchase price. We think it's market. We don't want to absorb the real estate tax risk prior to closing. That puts us in over $100,000 cash equity for a deal that doesn't close potentially per the contract. And we're going to share the vision that we put forward and put that forward at the right time.
Thank you. Would anyone like to have any questions? Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. So as you remember, we had two really close offers to each other, and so part of me making the decision that I made was based on the renderings that you guys provided and the minimum of 24,000. You had 24,000 square feet of Class A office. So this or comparable office space makes me a little concerned. Dan, what does that mean? Because why is that sentence even in there? Class A or comparable office space? Is that?
Well, and I'll leave this up to the people that are in this business, but I think the term Class A is subjectively defined at best, and so we wanted to put some language in there that at least allowed for some understanding of what that phrase meant. We weren't able to, to address it. It's just not as finite a phrase as I think everybody would think.
So I just don't want it to be like what happens to us all the time is people come in, tell us one thing, we get the quick change on us, and then we're told it's market. So that's not going to allow, or comparable, is that going to allow them to slide into a market value office space? From my understanding, and I'm not a vertical person, but I talk to vertical people, and I've stayed at a Holiday Inn. So Class A, I thought, does have a general understanding. I mean, I guess it's kind of like pad ready. Like, people could have a different interpretation of what pad ready is, but it has to do with finishes, the drywall texture, things like that. Like, so I just, when you put or comparable office space, just gives me a little agita because I'm like, are they going to play the fast one and be like, oh, well, it's or comparable, that's market. And then we end up with like, a lower tier, which, like I said, for me, like the tipping point for me was the Class A office space because there's not Class A office space in Osceola County. I think like, what do we talk about? Some charter school and like a building at Neo City. I think that's it. So I was excited about the Class A. So me personally, I mean, I'm willing to be flexible to a point on that square footage, but I'm not willing to take square footage off the table, because we could go to 0 or, 500 or something. When this contract closes, Dan, do the taxes come out of, I guess the issue was if it closes where we have to fork out money before it closes, then the city would have lost $45,000.
The city would have to the city would have to pay the taxes if the property doesn't close before the taxes become due.
Right, but if it closes prior to, then it would come out of the proceeds.
Sales proceeds, right?
Okay,
Oh. Okay. What's that date?
You said March something?
We were working with a March 15th date. There is some wiggle room with regard to when they're actually due before it reaches the critical point. But March 15th was the date we were working with.
So if they close March 14th, this whole issue goes away?
Yeah.
It would be in the proceeds, right? So that's
Yeah, so like,
the
all
first
right,
bullet point.
done.
I'm willing
Change
to
the
be a
closing date.
little
But that's why
flexible.
we put this condition only takes effect if they don't close by March
Right.
15th.
Okay.
That's how we understand.
Yeah.
I think, Mr. Tracy, was your motion.
Could have been. That was more than 12 hours ago.
So, like, for me, the first bullet point, I feel like personally I could be moved to make some modifications. The second bullet point for me is a little more of a sticky wicket. So I don't know how the other council members
I've asked a
feel.
lot of people what their definition of Class A office is, and it's all different. So, like, I don't even know. Like,
Yeah, I just don't want.
are you CCIM? Yeah. Can you, like, give us the CCIM definition, I guess?
Boma dictionary.
All I can tell you is that you cannot find any publication that's going to define what Class A is. That's all I can tell you. So I do corroborate the discussion that there is no definite one kind of blanket description of what Class A is. Class A in a primary market looks very different from Class A in a secondary or tertiary market. So that's the first difference. In New York City, Class A is just, Las Vegas, for instance. Class A is just defined by, by the wins and the trumps. And so, for this particular instance, I think that the intent is there to put together a very, very fine product for a corporate campus. And I believe that, that it is not, I don't think that they would switch on you, I guess is my, if I can just crudely put it that way. Because it is their intent to put a really quality product. And this is from my conversations, of course, with the representative. And I have not had a chance to say hello to Mr. Cross yet, but I will. Hello. Hi. So I hope that helps.
I guess,
Can it just be like retail building, retail office, or? 'Cause
I guess
so
for
the
me,
industrial
I
buildings
just
don't
want,
move
I
to the
just want to
front.
make sure that, I mean, because I don't know what led you guys to vote the way you voted, but for me,
Were you not here? Oh, okay, sorry, no.
I
thought you were
don't know
saying
what's
you
in
weren't
your
here, but-
mind. But for me, it was the rendering. I like the rendering. I like that, an elevated building. I just don't want to be disappointed again, and I feel like everyone has good intentions, honestly, when they come up here. I don't feel like anybody's like a big, like trying to mislead anybody, but I think as they get into it, they might say, oh, we're too far in the hole with the money, and then they switch and make a pivot and do something. So that's just
Ms.
my
Matheny.
thoughts.
Can I address?
Yes.
So the qualifier around Class A is strictly that. There isn't a defined definition. We would hate to get hung up on somebody's definition differing from either the councils or ourselves. That's all it is. It's just a qualifier around that. I want you just to be very clear that our vision is the same. We put the renderings in front of you. That's our vision that we now share. What you have with this group are three guys born and raised in Osceola County. All three of us went to school in this county. We're all three going to be tattooing this building. This is going to be our project. We're going to want it to look as nice as you do. That's what I'll tell you. We're all stakeholders in the county. We're all born and raised here. We share the same vision. There's not going to be a switch on it. And at the end of the day, we're going to put a site plan that maximizes the site in front of you, along with elevations, and we'll all talk about it then.
So can we
That's-
So
put
we
that
have
in the
another-
contract, the building will look as nice as we all want it to?
As long as we share the same vision.
You have to talk to my boyfriend. Like nothing is ever nice enough for me. So, so we'll see this again, Dan.
Yes.
So this will come before us with renderings and plans. I didn't think it did.
No, it's not. First of all, you could see it as the DSD if you want to, but I don't think you'll see it as the city council either. Not as long as they're following the existing codes. Now, you could if you want to, but I'm not sure at that point where would we be? They would own the property. They would be doing the development at that point. So,
I'm sorry, I have one more question.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Who makes the determination if it's Class A? Is that the building official? Like who?
no,
If there's no definition,
this
but
contract
somebody has
language
to-
would be language that you would make, essentially. The language that was in the contract was in the purchase and sale agreement. It wouldn't be enforced by the city. It would basically be an interpretation as to whether whatever they built was Class A or comparable office space, and that basically becomes a discussion item, for lack of a better word, among the parties. The parties to this contract are the LRS and the DSD. So if the DSD felt in that point that they didn't live up to that contract provision, then the DSD would approach LRS and say, you didn't build what you said you were going to build, and you've basically breached the contract piece. But it is subjective language, and we'll be the first to admit it.
Which is why you had that carve out in there, because you probably don't like subjective language.
Oh, I don't. Well, but this is part of the reason why we did put that in there, because
So is the 24,000 square feet an issue, or is it the Class A? Or both?
We just don't want to get boxed into something that might not be able to be delivered via the easement that is there, and parking and setbacks. We want to make sure that we can deliver what we put forward. And if it's 23,999 square feet, we'd hate to be in violation of the PSA in that regard.
Can
well,
we put some language like a good faith,
Yeah.
like a good faith effort to get to 24,000. I mean, so that there's.
We had talked with some language with the attorney that was working on this about having that amount drop down to, I think, 19,000 in the event that there was an issue with the easement.
If
Do you
there
remember
was-
that?
If there was a best efforts qualifier around that, I think that would be reasonable. I would have to take it back to my partners, but I do think that would be reasonable.
We've sat on this property forever. We need, I think we have someone that I think wants to deliver a quality product. We just want that assurance that that's what we're going to get.
Yes, sir.
I'll make a
Any other
motion
discussion?
if y'all
Make a
want one.
motion.
So I'll make a motion to remove bullet point 1 and then to add some, I'm sure Mr. Manzares can come up with some crafty language, but to have some language in there that said that they make good faith efforts to get to 24,000 square feet Class A or comparable office space.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Can I put a friendly in there?
Yes.
Can we say there's a minimum so they can at least design the product if they have a problem with the center, with the easement? I like the 19,000, at least we're there. And for the record, I did talk to one of the 3 players and kind of drilled them on what's going on. And I think they're going to put a nice product out there. I mean, I'm not totally going to drop on the sword for all of them, but I think that what they do and what they sell and what they believe in, and being Osceola County residents for a very long time, I sort of believe in the project, and hopefully they'll make what you're wanting and what I'm wanting and what Keith and the mayor are wanting.
So
So you want to put like a floor, like with a floor of,
Like a minimum of 19,000 square feet if they run into a problem with.
sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So
How do we,
So the motion now that's on the floor would be they would provide a good faith effort to construct a minimum of 19,000 square feet?
No, it's like 24,000 square feet is what we like. But if they can't get to 24,000 square feet, like they have to get to at least 19,000 square feet.
Okay, okay.
Gives them a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I think part of the issue that we maintained, that we had some preliminary discussions related to the easement and its impact on the square footage amount for the structures that would be there. So would that how you'd like to tie it to the easement? So if the easement prohibits them
Sure.
from going to 24,000, then we could do it like that?
Sure.
Will that work for the buyer? Or?
will that work for you, Mr. Cross?
I feel like we've kind of, Greg Cross, I feel like we've come up full circle back to a minimum qualifier, though. If there's a best efforts around a square footage, I think we would get comfortable with that. But at 24,000 best efforts, but minimum of 19, that's kind of in my mind back where we started, because we already kind of saw the 19 pushed out. So if you guys are comfortable trusting us that we're going to push as much retail to the front of that site as possible, that's where the highest rents are. That maximizes the site for us as well. So our interests are aligned here. But in a purchase and sale, to dictate the seller, to dictate to the buyer what a minimum would be, makes us uncomfortable in so much as we don't want to violate putting our signatures on a purchase and sale. So if there was a qualifier around 24,000 or 19,000, whichever it was, that's best efforts to get there, that I think we would agree to.
Best efforts of 24,000?
Yeah, it's still there.
Don't
All right.
make me regret this decision.
So, okay, so that's the motion then,
So are we clear on the motion? Is everyone clear on that motion?
So we're removing the floor, not putting the floor in, I guess?
Yeah, I guess.
Right. It's
Okay.
best efforts of
I'm good with it.
24,000.
is that Mr. Askew, are you seconding that?
Second.
Mr. Askew seconded it. Ms. Matheny made the motion. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 And I'll add my aye, and that's 4-0. It carries.
And with that, Mayor, if I may be the one to say that makes all the Stevens property under contract.
Heck yeah. He got his cattle country clogging.
That was pretty good.
Were you a cattle country clogger?
All right,
But
there's
with
nothing
that-
else on our agenda. Any other items that
I-
anybody have?
So,
Yes.
two questions. 4 and 5, do we have an update on Madison Grove?
Madison Grove, the update was they unofficially received the scoring that entitles them to the funding. The official results are supposed to come out next month. I talked to Stacy Bannock last week about it, and everything is right on
And when would the
schedule.
closing of that be?
March.
Awesome. So by March, we could not have to meet again.
Sure, if you like.
Should get like trophies or something.
Anything else?
And then we were working on that retail sign at one point. That kind of goes away now that all of them are under contract with the same person?
Well, we still have to work on, as was mentioned, and Abismail can talk about they're still working on the easement piece to address the CenturyLink box that's out there, and the sign is still part of that whole project, right?
Correct. So now that the same owner, for those lot 1, 2, 4, and 5, he did bring an idea to me to help him design the site a little bit better, to directly contact CenturyLink to see how he can help them get access. That way the city is not involved in that aspect of the easement vacation as well.
Perfect.
Or the redesign of the easement. But the vacation is currently on the process. It's just the other access for CenturyLink that we'll have to discuss now.
Right?
Thank you.
Anything else? We are adjourned.
We got like 5 minutes or something.
Let's take a quick break and then we'll.